For those of you who are interested in integrating a Gns3 topology along with your Palo Alto lab topology, this nugget is going to walk you through how to do that. For individuals who have not yet even thought about using Gns3 or how that could be used or leveraged, this is going to be a very interesting nugget for you as well. Let's begin. One of the challenges that I see come up occasionally is that as individuals work with VMware Workstation and they integrate, for example, a Windows 10 computer or another device in VMware Workstation, it takes a lot of overhead. And so a compromise to that is to go ahead and use, for example, a small distribution of Linux, like a really teeny one. The challenge with any VMware environment is that if the operating system that we're running as a VM, if it doesn't support the VMware tools and it's like a really light distribution of Linux, like DSL, and there's some other flavors as well, they can't support the VMware tools. And the bad news about that is if the VMware tools aren't available, sometimes mouse control and stuff doesn't work very well as we try to work with a virtual machine. So one possible alternative is to use Gns3. Now, if you're already a Gns3 enthusiast, you're going to love this. And if you're new to Gns3, you're also probably going to love this. Because what we can do is we can build in Gns3 a virtualized routing environment and just simply link it in. For example, this network segment in VMware Workstation is represented by VMnet1. And so we can create a cloud in Gns3 that represents that network, and then we can connect pretty much anything we want to in Gns3 to that network, and poof, it's all sitting on that 10.11 network. So I'll walk you through how simple that is. And if you're brand spanking new to Gns3, you can ramp up to speed fairly quickly by simply taking a look at maybe one or two videos from our Gns3 1.x fundamentals course right here at CBT Nuggets, which can walk you through the bells and whistles of how to get up and running fairly quickly with Gns3. So this is the machine right here that I'm running VMware Workstation on. I'm going to minimize that and let me launch Gns3. So here in Gns3, we could create a new project and save it if we wanted to, but for our purposes, all we really need to do is select the icon over here to browse all devices. We'll drag out a cloud over to our topology. We'll right-click on this cloud, and from the drop-down, we'll select Configure, and then we'll select that cloud, and we're going to configure that cloud so that it represents a network interface card, and we're going to represent VMnet1, and click on Add. So now, effectively, this cloud represents that 10.1.1 subnet that VMware Workstation is supporting. And we'll click on Apply and click on OK. I suppose the OK would have been enough. But then, if we want to use the virtual PC simulator, this is probably the easiest way to do it. We simply drag out the VPCS, the virtual PC simulator PC, and then we use the connector tool right here to connect it. And that is not, that connection did not happen. So sometimes that occurs. Let's do this. Let's go ahead and grab a switch. This is just a generic Gns3 switch. And we'll see if we can connect the switch over to the cloud. That looks good. And the PC over to the switch. How about that for a little creativity? So if life supplies us lemons, we're going to crank that into lemonade. So effectively, we have connectivity from PC1 to the 10.1.1 subnet. We'll right-click on PC1, click on Start, and now we have the virtual PC simulator that we can use right here on this 10.1.1 network. So to get a console to this, we could right-click, select Console from the drop-down. There's the console for our virtual PC. There is context-sensitive help. We can do a question mark, press Enter. And we want to set the IP address. So it's IP space. The IP address we want to use is 10.2, I take it back, 1.1. And let's use 26 because 25 is already in use. We'll do a space and a question mark and an Enter. Okay, cool. So we can use a slash. So I'll hit the up arrow key and we'll use a slash 24 space. And then the next parameter is the default gateway it should use. And we're going to specify 10.1.1.250, which is the firewall's inside interface address, which is interface 1/2. So it's checking for duplicate addresses and didn't find a duplicate address, which is a good thing. We can also set up DNS here. So we can type in the command DNS, and then we'll type in 8.8.8.8 and press Enter. And I did something wrong there. So let's do a question mark. Oh, I see. It's IP space DNS, and then we'll do 8.8.8.8. I guess I don't use the virtual PC simulator quite as often as I need to. So there we go. We've got the IP address and DNS information. If we do a show IP, there's our details. So there's our IP address, there's our default gateway, there's our DNS and we should be good to go. Now the other question is, what can we actually do from this machine? And we've got, and it is quite limited. So we could ping, except that's not allowed by our security policy. And with the ping, we can also do TCP and UDP, but here's what I think we ought to do. Ping by default uses ICMP. We could just allow ping on the firewall. We could just add it as part of our security policy. So let's do it. So we'll log into the firewall. The username and password is still admin. I haven't changed it yet, but when I do, you'll be right there. I'll walk you through it. So if we wanted to look at our current security policy, we'd go to Policies, and then we'd click on Security up here. And rearrange this a little bit, and there's our security policy. Users going to internet, and there's the applications we're allowing. DNS, SSL, and web browsing. We can go ahead and edit this policy by clicking on it. And simply under Application, we can click on Add, and let's type in ping. And we can add the ping application, which effectively is going to allow our ICMP echo request to be permitted through the firewall. So with ping added, we'll click on OK, and then we'll click on Commit, so that's saved. And we'll click on OK to confirm the commit. So while that's doing its commit work, we'll go ahead back to the client, referring to our virtual PC simulator client, and let's do a ping out to www.google.com. Now, if the name resolution works from google.com over to an IP address, that means our DNS is working, and because we just allowed ping, our ping should also be successful. So we'll press Enter. And there we have it. So the name was resolved and the pings were successful. So in the event you want to do some basic testing and you either don't have the time or don't want to set up a virtual machine as a PC client on that 10.1.1 subnet, using Gns3 is a viable option to very quickly and easily put a device on that 10.1.1 network for testing purposes. In this nugget, we've integrated some Gns3 into our lab topology and used the VPCS, the virtual PC simulator that comes as part of the Gns3 1.x application, which is free, by the way. And we set up that virtual PC simulator PC with an IP address, a correct default gateway, a DNS server for it to use. We also modified our security policy on the firewall to allow ping traffic. And after committing that, we went back to the virtual PC simulator, we tested it, and the crowd goes mild. And after all these years, I still get a kick when a ping works, especially if it's going through a firewall or other devices, and it's only working because of our correct configuration of those devices. It's still a blast. So I encourage you, my friend, to do all the homework, all the exercises that we're doing together in these nuggets. Please practice them on your own. And if you want to use the Gns3 integration as well, the Gns3 you may find is very, very useful for many aspects of your preparations, especially if you're in a Cisco type environment where you're labbing up scenarios and want to practice your Cisco skills. And later on in the course, when we take a look at virtual private networks, we'll actually set up a VPN site-to-site tunnel between a virtual Palo Alto firewall and a virtual Cisco router and verify that it works. And we're going to be leveraging Gns3 for that part of our course as well. So I'm looking forward to all of these nuggets that we're going through together. Meanwhile, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.